So Ren, tell me, where did the calling come to help people transition from the military to a civilian life and start their own business?
It's a really good question, actually, Alex. And I've got to go back a little bit. So back in 2012, I just sold my shares in my last venture, and I decided I was going to take a year out. Now, anybody who really knows me will know that I've also helped, especially young people, to understand business, admin and finance. I was appointed by the Secretary of State in 2009 to be the national champion. So it was always in my DNA. So that year out was really to go and do some vocational education and an MBA. And I found that government were doing quite a lot at that point to really prime the market and pump prime the market with new startups, which was brilliant. But there was one really big thing missing, which was the handrail support, which was vital as far as I was concerned, because yes, it's important to have finance, but without the wraparound support, it's quite linear. So back in 2012, but it was very much something that I was, very passionate about, and particularly individuals who may not find their career choice through traditional going to big corporate or other business and working for somebody.
And taking it even further back then, were you one of those children who exhibited entrepreneurial skills yourself at a young age? Like I interview people and they had a lemonade stand at the end of the driveway. Were you one of those children?
Yeah, absolutely. And Alex, it's a fun question to ask, actually. Yes, I think I'm not realising it at the time, but my entrepreneurship really started when I was like 6-7 years old. And we were one of those families where both of our parents worked. So Mum would come home on a Friday night with her little brown pay packet with cash in it, and it would be distributed on a Friday. Here's your pocket money for the week. That included your lunch, and I used to spend most of it on books and also on sweets, and then sell the sweets at a little bit of a profit,
right?
And then eat the profit with my friends. So it was a case of So it was a case of actually, I suppose, belonging, but through enterprise and entrepreneurship. So I didn't do the lemonade stand, but I did do the sweetie stand.
And did your parents encourage you to do that? Were they both working, did you say? Neither of them had their own business or any?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think my mother would have been a little bit distraught had she known I spent my week's lunch money, majority of it on sweets.
Yeah,
before the end of the weekend. So no, I don't think my mum really did that. But my father, he came from background British Indian. My parents were born in India. My father came from a bit more of an entrepreneurial background in India, so they were in business. He would have encouraged it. I think if he was looking down now, he'd be thinking, there's a bit of that spark there.
Yeah, nice. And schooling wise, did you always have an idea of what you wanted to do career wise? Did you want to start your own business, or was it more that you had a certain career path kind of mapped out for you at a young age?
Alex, it's an interesting one, because I didn't have a conventional upbringing. Both parents were working. I have 3 elder brothers who are much older than me. They were born in India. I was the one that was born here when my mum came. A little bit later. My father came first, and Mum and the boys were back in India, and then that she brought them over some years later. So it wasn't necessarily quite conventional. When the biggest impact on my life and my career, not really knowing this at the time, was when my father passed away. I was 15 years old when my father passed away, and that fundamentally changed my life. I had an arranged marriage at 16 and 2 days. It's really important, that piece, because it wasn't 16 going on to 17. Right. I was literally just 16. Wow. So that was tough. What I felt I wanted to do, and business always had an impact. I like that, working mum. I think there was a film on.
Correct.
But at that time, really, it was about the armed forces. In fact, it was about the army. I didn't really know much about the RAF and Navy at that time. So what did have a big impact on me was the Lord Kitchener big poster, "We want you." And looking back now as an adult, I can see why that was important. That was a very much a powerful image back in the day, especially on somebody so young, because if it was a case of, I want to be part of that, I want to be wanted, not realizing that as a young person, really that's quite sad and quite inspiring now, to know that had a big impact on me. And the other one I have got to say was Private Benjamin.
Really? No way.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that was the era. Private Benjamin wanted that uniform, wanted to be part of that, but also the Lord Kitchener advert really had a big effect on me.
And do you remember where you saw that first of all?
Yes, it was in my 100%. Because and I think that also makes a big difference, because it was a big poster. And it probably now was just a normal size poster, but to me as a young kid it was huge. And it was in my brother's bedroom. And so when I used to sneak in there to go and sneak out, I used to look at that, and I remember even now just standing looking at that poster.
And some entrepreneurs leave formal education to start their own business because they don't want to stay in the system. You left formal education for very different reasons.
Yeah, I have got to say I wasn't really conforming, if I be really honest with myself. I had a lot of energy. I was constantly being told, and I remember that, I remember also telling myself this as well, but I was always, I'm driving in the fast lane sort of thing. And going far too fast. So, I wasn't really conforming in what was a traditional British Indian family construct. And also from my hilltop, I was always inquisitive, and that took attention away from the academic treadmill. So I think, traditional education, I love education, do not get me wrong. I'm always reading. I was always reading as a young kid as well, but I also wanted to do something with it. I know for sure that I wasn't conforming in the traditional treadmill of education.
Okay, and you said you had an arranged marriage when you were 16 and 2 days.
Yeah.
When you look back to that now, do you think you were just a kid yourself?
I'd be horrified if one of my children came to me and said, at 16 I'm getting married. I'd be horrified if any child came to anyone and said, I'm getting married at 16. I think you're really still trying to just find yourself. I don't have any regrets, because that arranged marriage didn't work. But what I did have, is at 17 I had my first child. So Aaron was born at 17. I had my first business at 18.
Wow.
So that was a big change, and I'll tell you a little story about that, which is quite good fun. And then I had my second son, Vin, at 19. So I wouldn't change it for all the teen China. However, it is still too young, really. I would have thought for me it was really. But at 18 I remember going taking Aaron and in a pushchair into Birmingham, because our business was based in Birmingham, and I bumped into my friend who I still I'm connected to now, and she was going to college, and I was there with Aaron, and she said, "And how are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm just nipping out for a few hours. But we've got a tax audit happening." So it was two worlds apart. You know, somebody who's going into college, and then here's somebody who's got a tax audit that's happening in the next couple of days, knowing I'm going to be really busy. So I and that will always stay with me as well. And I remember thinking, wow, I wonder what that would have been like going to college. That was I wouldn't change it.
Interesting. And what was your relationship with your family like back then?
Yeah, so Pretty much how it is now, to be really honest, Alex. I don't. It was tough. Yeah, I ran away. So the arranged marriage wasn't working. It was emotionally not a great place for me. I'm obviously probably for my ex as well. And what was really fundamental at that time was that I was expected to stay in a relationship that wasn't working, and my family disowned me every time I left. So I had nobody, and literally I had no network of friends because that hadn't really been encouraged. It was mostly family. So not only did his family would have disowned me anyway because they were going to side with him, with my ex-husband, but my family disowned me too. So I didn't really see my children properly for about 6 years, and they were only 4 and 6. And again, enterprise and having my own business played a fundamental role in me and my purpose, and also getting access to my children, because I had to build myself back up. And if I hadn't had the opportunity, sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional now.
I'm not surprised. No, absolutely.
So if I hadn't had the opportunity to through business work hard, and I wouldn't have been able to go and get custody of my eldest son, and then get access to my youngest son as well. Yeah. So I've got a lot to be thankful of for this country, actually, and the encouragement that we still place in people who want to explore business, whether they want to work for themselves or work in business. I think that there's some great stuff that's out there, but that's what's really been under the essence of XForces, and also creating XForces as well. If we peel back the layers, back to why I started XForces.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine, as a father, again, 2 children, I couldn't imagine what that might have been like. And then you literally started your first business as well. So did that bring you some measure of independence? Was that one of the reasons that you wanted to do that?
It was, independence comes with it, but if we go back to, I didn't have a traditional education. I wasn't conforming in the traditional conveyor belt of education. Then I had an arranged marriage, and then it was a case of, there was still clearly some grit. I wasn't going to be a stay-at-home mum for myself, because that wasn't my destiny, and I actually couldn't afford to do that, because I wanted to create some financial independence to be able to go and have access to my children again. So for me, it was a case of, it wasn't just about financial independence. It came a little bit out of adversity, but financial independence was a result of hard work. Yes, for sure, and it is important to have that.
And do you think that message is as relevant today as it was then, that the skills and knowledge that the enterprise bring are life skills that all people should?
And again, Alex, this is brilliant, because enterprise skills, and I'm a real advocate for this. They are so important, whether you are an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, and whether you are working for yourself and starting your own business, or whether you are taking those skills into somebody else's business. And I mentioned a little while ago, I was appointed by the Secretary of State in 2009 to be the champion for business admin and finance. The project that we worked on was to get education and business to really work together. And big business, the FTSE 500, the chief executives, I've spent a lot of time interviewing and working with a huge amount of them. And they were saying things like, well, we're getting the academic side through our young people coming out, but there's still the softer life skills that they're not necessarily having. So enterprise skills are fundamental, in my humble opinion, as life skills for the future. And hey, we're going to ebb and flow between employment, self-employment, side hustles, all of that.
Absolutely.
Sort of
Yeah. It's not one career for the rest of your life,
No.
just as X-Forces clearly demonstrates with a lot of people. And moving into that, talk to me about the timeline and the reasons around why you decided to start X-Forces Enterprise.
Right, so back in 2012, the Secretary of State for Business at the time, and actually Lord Young, who was the genius behind microfinancing and has been, I mean, that's what he's been done. That's what he's been doing in his government life. There was that new initiative, which was the startup loans, and also there was a big announcement about the access to community groups, and in some cases vulnerable community groups, and that really, you know, the work that I'd been doing previous to that sort of like really sparked something for me. And I delved into, well, what does that look like? And I found that actually there was a group that the armed forces, who, if you look back, it's a sense of belonging. They're now transitioning out, and a lot of people who would have joined the armed forces would have loved the camaraderie of being within the armed forces. And part of their transition, you know, coming out, that was a big loss. So how could X-Forces and the X-Forces community really build that? But more importantly, if we were just lending and a bit of mentoring isn't going to necessarily get the success ratio that people want. So they, you know, how do we build events? How do we build training? All of that sort of stuff. So actually it was something that was not just, okay, we know the process and we know that there's a wider process, but what we also didn't want to do is let people down, because for some people starting up their own business may have been a last resort, and if they fell, you know, if they fell at the edge of the table, we didn't want to have that situation whereby that safety net wasn't there. And if I wanted to be that person that was in the armed forces, and you know, they've served our country, you know, these individuals are special. I'm really proud to say I've actually now become a reservist. So now, you know, that big thing that I've always wanted to do as a young kid, I've now actually been able to do that as well. So amazing. I sort of get it from both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I was going to say, what different perspective has that added for you? A bunch of things, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's there's so many things. First of all, my experience of being within the armed forces has been my colleagues have been so welcoming, and I'm quite humbled of being able to come into that environment and be able to support that environment with some of the knowledge and experience that I have. So that's a good thing. But I do still, I'm very green behind the ears, and it's really interesting, you know, how individuals might be feeling when they're transitioning out. And it's all to do with confidence, and it's all about that confidence. You know, am I wearing my beret right? You know, and have I got my uniform on, and am I providing the right, you know, and respecting people in the right way? All of those things are the things that you automatically want to be able to do in the right way. What I do in terms of adding value, that's my day job. Bringing that into the armed forces that's no hassle at all. But I'm still transitioning.
And what I think is key, having seen it from different providers of startup loans and mentoring, is that, you know, entrepreneurship can be quite a lonely place.
Yeah.
And what it seems to me, what you've done is create a sense of community and a sense of belonging, because otherwise it's get a loan, 12 months of support. Well, we all know that it can turn into 10, 20, 30 year career, but where's the support after that?
Yeah. And okay, so there's, you know, it's a great initiative in terms of being able to have access to finance. That's great. But if I be really honest about it, I didn't have a family. You know, I didn't really grow up to have that. I lost access to my kids for a while. That had a fundamental effect on me, certainly on them too. And X-Forces is my family, and that community part is so important. not just to what we do and what we deliver, but also what they do for me too. And I was interviewed by Bays, it was Biz at the time when we first started out, and the woman behind the camera, she was interviewing me, and again, she'll be somebody I won't forget. And she just came away from the camera, turned it off, and she said, so basically, you just created your own family, haven't you? And she had tears in her eyes, and she made me cry too. And basically, the people who belong in the XForces community and are part of our family, and we do talk about it in that way. So yeah, it's more than let's just give you some access to tools and finance. That's not what we're about.
Awesome. And what do you feel you've achieved 6 years in? A lot, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Wow. Do you know what? We've all achieved it together. You know, even you doing this interview are part of our family now. So, you know, I've got an amazing team. I do roll my sleeves up and get stuck in, and I've been told that that's one of the things that they love about what we do. But the biggest achievement is it's got to be that we've seen so many of our businesses flourishing and staying with us. So they could have gone out of the communities, but they're that now, the advocates. They're now the providing the peer-to-peer mentoring and stuff. So it's nice to be able to see that virtuous circle of success happening, but also the recognition that if you are an XForces Enterprise business, you mean something. So that I feel really proud about, and people see it from government to the third sector to our charity partners, and we've got some amazing big businesses that are part of our community.
And tell me, throw a few facts at you, but one of the facts that jumped out to me was the fact that 30% of the people that you're able to help are actually females.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing statistic given the national average.
Yeah, and you know, Alex, it's really interesting because I'm just such a big champion of women and women in enterprise, and there's a lot of work that's being done by some influential people to make sure that women have the right opportunities. And I think the opportunities are there, but we do need to shape slightly different things. You know, when we look into it, things like childcare is still, you know, an inhibitor. So that's one thing, and access to finance, which obviously we've got access to. But it is incredible that, you know, the armed forces is predominantly male dominated, yet spouses, veteran females have all joined, and I'm really proud of that, you know, 30% that we have, without being specialist in just delivering for women. So that's, you know, I think we can do more for spouses, and we will. But it's great.
And success rate you've had with the microfinancing as well is
remind
me, is it like in the 90s or something crazy?
Yeah, it's over 90%, and I get asked that, Alex, on quite a few occasions as to why is it that it's so high for you guys, because we've got quite a lot of people that come through and we're supporting, and fundamentally it's because of three things: support before you start, support during your start, and after. Okay, so those are the three things in terms of support, but there's another very different important part. We measure success by making an informed decision to start your own business, and equally as important to that is making an informed decision not to start your own business. And people come on the training, you know, it's a bit like, it's not a slot machine. Oh, you've come on a training program, so the emphasis is that you must start. In fact, we make it very clear you're on this program to make sure that this is right for you, and understand where your red lines are, and is this something that you want to do. So I think those are the fundamental reasons why we've got such a high success rate on the microfinancing.
And conversely, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're currently facing?
Yeah, and I guess our biggest challenge is also our biggest strength. And that biggest challenge is that we've always talked about collaboration from day dot, and if you look back to the plan that was put together before we even launched, it was collaboration with 3 stakeholder groups. That's business, charity and government.
Right.
And we can demonstrate in all 3 of those the impact that we've had. And it's basically making sure that we're always aligned on those 3 stakeholders to get the best for our beneficiaries. So the biggest challenge is making sure that that also those stakeholders get it. If you take government, it's not just Treasury, who's so the British Business Bank and where the microfinancing comes from and the startup loans, but the benefit we're making to the health department, to DWP and all of those sort of things. So there's a real impact there. Big business. We've made a conscious decision that we are only going to work that closely with 20 big businesses who really fit into our ethos. So we call them the Magic 20.
Okay.
And it's really phenomenal because then we can really work. It's not just, let's have this big business working with us because they've got the means to do so. It's does it align? Do they really understand the needs of the beneficiaries? How else can they make that impact? And of course, then it's our charity partners. We are a community interest company, 100% not for profit because we elected to be that. But why? We spent a lot of time looking at whether we should be a charity or a CIC or a limited company. But what we wanted to make sure is that actually a charity then sort of being the advocate for, guys, you need to make some profit. What you do with it, whether it's social or whether it's actually feeding the family or being, being able to buy your next car or whatever it means to you. But you have to be profitable to do that. Then being a third sector and a charity didn't make sense for us. But also, to be really fair, we're also a service provider to our charity partners, and we're so grateful to our charity partners. They're awesome.
And tell me about some of the changes that you've been able to implement, because there must have been certain times during the 6 years that you've had to broach that and maybe go about things in a slightly different way than the government used to.
This comes back to, I'm only laughing because this probably goes back to my personality as that wee little girl that was never going to take no for an answer, and my father used to call me why, because apparently I used to always ask, well, why do I need to do that and why can't I do that? So that sort of really reflects back to the fact that we've made 2 policy changes in our 6 years, and we're not going to stop there. There's lots of things that we can help and support in terms of government and working with people like the Federation of Small Business, which I'm also very proud of. But the first policy change was we had to effect that change before we even started. We lobbied Lord Young actually and the Secretary of State for Business to alter the startup loans policy, because at that time it was only available, they just increased the age limit to 30 and that was it. And that would not have worked for our armed forces community. So the papers and everything that I had to write and the endorsements that we needed to get to be able to have that policy altered so that there was no age limit, so that our community could benefit from that. We were the only organisation, Alex, in the UK with no age limit for just under a year. And then the Startup Loans Organisation and Treasury saw that, these guys are doing something great, and actually it's making so much difference to society that they took the age cap off across the board.
Wow.
So we
That's an
affected
endorsement
that.
in itself.
And the second one was really about the Armed Forces Covenant, which is doing some amazing things, but it's all about employment, and we wanted to see in parity self-employment working alongside that. And there's still a lot to do, still on that agenda, because everybody still talks about employment, and I think we're really putting on the map about self-employment and enterprise.
And so today, XForces Enterprise are the UK's largest provider of enterprise and business support to the military community.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're the UK's largest, and we've got a national footprint. So we go across the UK, and we also deliver in Northern Ireland. And we've just sort of stopped delivering in Germany, so we've been delivering in Germany as well. So with our troops coming back, the next big project is how do we actually support the families who are now resettling back in the UK. Big piece of project, big work to be done.
I bet. And it's in celebrating 6 years, is this podcast and TV channel one of the ways that you're looking to share those success stories that you've got to try and tap into people who aren't aware? Right.
So we are getting our beneficiaries who have been through the program come in at different from different pathways, whether that was because it was a decision to take a hobby into a commercial or explore enterprise, or be the next person who wants to employ other people from the armed forces. So we'll have a series of podcasts and vlogs that are happening throughout the next 12 months, so that people can listen, share, be inspired, maybe even just help or be part of what we are calling the X-Forces community family. So it'll be great. I'm excited.
Good. And just to finish off, you were recognised yourself a couple of years ago, I believe, in the Queen's 90th birthday honours.
Yes.
Can you just tell us a little bit about the emotions around that, and when you reflect back maybe a couple of years on?
Alex, it was a Saturday, and this letter came through the letterbox, and I was in my marigold, just doing a little bit of that spring clean, and it's when you go back, and it's quite emotional. It was an official envelope, so I thought, oh goodness me, something from Company's House. What haven't I? What's this now? So I opened it, and you skim read. You don't, when you get something quite official, you skim read, and I saw this. So it was from David Cameron, was the Prime Minister at the time. So it was from the Cabinet Office on his behalf, and I actually rang them on Monday and said, I think you've made a mistake.
You didn't?
I did. So I said, is this you just thinking about it? Or they said, no, this is, we would like you to make a decision as to whether you want to accept the MBE or not. Yeah. And I said, are you sure? So yes, and then the family joke is that, in 2012, I was supposed to be doing my MBA. It decided that and decided I wanted to, fix the world. And I got an E instead of an A.
Love it. Great story. Yeah. And just last question for you. For those who are watching and or listening to this, what's the easiest way that people can get in touch if they'd like to find out more about what you do? So
my team are as passionate about X-Forces and helping the armed forces community. Please pick up the phone or go to the website. It's the easiest. It's x-forces.com. So x-forces.com, and just put in an inquiry form, and somebody will be in touch, usually within 24 hours. So
awesome.